Mama na say ma PENDREAM TV there o say dem yopo.
Yo, Abusiafo Yamamo Akwaba Edemoba PENDREAM TV. So me patroba pep more modern sir over subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe we are share video no to other platforms. So ma afofro so enya bi enhwe. Abusia enne yebetwe enkomo bi nya yebekọ ahoma no so na yene yenua berma bako a owo amanone akotwe enkomo kakra and ni din ade Joe Emmanuel Nkrumah na oye political analyst oko abrochirimamu a wo Leeds branch NDC ono na oye secretary na yebepese ye no beko nkomom na yakotwe na yahwe ekwan a eye radio stations a 64 a ye communication minister any NCA for eba abonten be kan say o ma close one down san say omu enni eye NCA enhyehyɛ so na saa asam no ebeto odwa no omanpanyi John Dramani Mahama ede letter bi ede beto odwa na okiremu a saa enkrofo no nyina radio stations ne ho nkeka ho nyina no omo ntwen sensan ma yenklosi omo edown na omo nhwe na yema omo ebre kakra abusiafo ansa ne yebekọ nsem no ma menchia eye minua Joe be ma wakaba
yeah okay me do so open
na apom ye de
nyame adom ye ho de fa
na amano ne mframa na ekosen
ya da nyame ase ye wura sam da mu nti at least ye nye wia kakra
da nyame ase enkomo a me pese me no edi etwetwe no efa eye 64 radio stations are closing it down ma omanpanyi John Dramani Mahama atwe asan no eno na me pese yedi hu nkomo kakra na ansa na me pese ye bekọ na yakọ ready eye letter omanpanyi John Dramani Mahama etwoye ede betwa mu na ye ba ya betoa ye nkomo no so enti mesero say ubenya ebre ede ama me kakra nia
no problem
ye call letter no mu a o say president in fact letter we free omanpanyini asoye na ochiremu a o say President Mahama requests clemency for affected radio stations. I say President John Dramani Mahama has directed the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations to liaise with the National Communication Authority, NCA, to immediately restore the broadcast of 64 radio stations affected by the regulator's action. Excuse me. I said the President believes that the regulatory compliance must take into account the need to uphold and enhance media freedom, and that requiring radio stations to shut down while awaiting the regularization of their authorization could limit the space for expressing such freedoms. The President has asked the Minister to work with the NCA on a reasonable time frame within which the affected stations should regularize their authorization. Signed, Felix Kwachi Ufusu MP, spokesperson to the President, Minister, Government Communications. Enti sa letter yi na omanpanyi John Dramani Mahama etroya odi etwa eye klo janem na minua Joe sa asemi wo dwene ho sen.
Well, first of all, Mamitia once again. Na yeah, we tie for any Ghana for ina.
Yeah, that's it.
Ne yenu no mo wa broche ina.
Yeah, that's it.
I think say it is in the spirit of oneness. Any odo wo magana entina le ema me na wo kase. Because I believe say no matter where you find yourself no. So we are Ghana near so magana ehia.
No crap
Na de ekosu bia no. Because brother obi enu obeye ye man na man ye ankasa na ese ye man.
No crap.
We need to be actively involved in whatever that goes on in our country. Now, with that said, I would want to say this move by the president is a welcomed one. Because if you reference the letter as you rightly read now, or say in the spirit of freedom of speech and the freedom of the media, yema omokwan to operate whilst they find means to regularize their licenses and all that. A welcomed because if you compare it to 2017 or so, the CIA to radio gold muntie and all that now. You could see say this one, the president has kind of shown character. The president has shown the level of say Obama freedom of the media are operating within the country, which is very vital, because in this era you will need the media in every aspect of the nation's dispensation. And in kind of revoking the alliances, everybody would read meanings into it, and especially when those radio stations are affected, our stations are believed to be belonging to the opposition. Everybody will say you are trying to cower the minority into silence, which is not a good thing. And so for me, I would want to commend the president. He has shown that he is a father to the nation, and not just a father to the NDC or to people who align with the ideals of the NDC as a political party, but he is a father to all of us. And so we all need to commend the president for coming in with this directive. I am very happy. When I heard the closure, I was taken aback, because then I was like, is the days, the 1990 days coming back? Because, my brother, you need to emphasize the fact that two wrongs don't make a right. And for that matter, because MPP did that, Nana Akufo-Addo did that in his era, doesn't mean we need to, replicate that. And so for me, I would want to commend the president. He has done well, and we all need to applaud him.
Now, Joe, ebi no so asɛm a ɔmo kyerɛ mu ɛne sɛ ɔmanpanyin ɛyɛ saa deɛ a na ɔfoa bɔne so. Ne sɛnti ne sɛ ɔman no wɔ mmara ne nhyehyɛeɛ a institution biara ɛde yɛ adwuma. Enti sɛ mefa sɛ kanea ban no ɛbaeɛ no sɛ wahwehwɛ ɛyɛ ɛfɛn sɛ NCA mmram ahu sɛ radio stations bi abu so na mmara no ɛsan kyerɛ wɔn ɛho asotwe a wɔse yɛde ma wɔn na sɛ wɔde ama wɔn a ɛnka ne kwan so ano no enti sɛ ɔmanpanyin Mahama wo so waba na sɛ wo so wabɛto sɛ aba yɛde bɔ takyi ɛnaano no ɛyɛ mmara yɛdidi some radio stations bi no sɛ nnɛ radio stations afoforo bi so akɔ fam saa mmara na sɛ saa asɔyɛ hɔ anaasɛ institution korɔ no a ɛsan ɛfa mmara kwan so ɛde ɔmoto mɛka ne sɛ nsaneɛ so na ɛdi wɔn a ɛnka ɔmanpanyin Mahama nkɔma ɛno so ɛntoa so nkɔ sɛdeɛ ɛbɛyɛ a ɛnkɔyɛ sɛ nkurɔfoɔ bi ba a ɔmo deɛ mmara no etumi kyikyere ɔmo peme na ɛni ɔmo adi na asɛe ɔmo no aduane atwe ɔmo aso but ebinom so ba na akɔyɛ deɛ ɛwɔ hɔ saa asɛm no wodwene ho sɛ.
Well, Maminda was once again. I have that feeling as well. You see, there are two schools of thought. Are we going to allow the laws to work or are we going to interfere in the exercise of the laws, working? Which I believe this is the argument people are happy to say. If you want the laws to work and the laws are working, why does the president have to come in and kind of interfere in the work of the minister or the NCA, which is the governing body? But you see, the question I want to ask these people is that when the NPP did that, did we find favor or did we find luxury in that act? We all complained. So if we complain that what the NPP did was wrong, and at least they would have given these radio stations some time to kind of amend whatever errors they have kind of committed. If we complain, and I said that the same thing is happening, if it is not the fact to say we hold a retaliatory mindset, I don't think we need to fault the president for intervening. Because like you rightly said, Yegu radio gold, Yegu Muntie radio, no? Some people lost their daily bread. Do we want it to continue? There are people working in Assassin radio, people working at Wuntumi radio. Do we want them to lose their job? That is not to say that if they've gone, they have been found foul of the law, we shouldn't allow the law to work. But sometimes, even if you are taken to court on a crime, you can't be say temper justice with mercy. That is not to say that the person has not committed a crime. But sometimes we kind of give leniency. And yes, of course, Barack Obama background or because we need stronger institutions and all that. I agree. But the point is that we also have to know the level of pain, the level of anger these things kind of generate.
You see, Joe, me eya enyoma bi wo hono mo a mo NDC for mo ya eya na eye yemu bi ya. Nyinti a tesa na say ase de bia mo ma ade na koluku like say de bia no NDC for ena mo no mo ba ase mo no mo pesa mo kire say emra no I don't know, some more the apostles of the law or whatever. Mono de biano mo pese mrano ye juma ni ho ade ade obi a wose mradi no na ase mo krokro no ni ho ade ade but ye nyina ye nim se some opponent no eba aban mu a omodi di mu a omo nhwe bankum no omo nhwe nifa. And this thing has repeated itself in Kofuor's era. And offense Akufo-Addo and apaying so. Enti ekwakwa yese ase mo NDC for de bia ase mo ba mo pesa mo ya mo se mo na mo dog Ghana too much. But sabio mpanyifo e ma yete ase se obi atwituo na sa wo so twitu a eno ye beka so ke ni nyina ntena se na yenye den yen ka asam no asam no mfa na asam ko ba sa ba ku twituo na ba ku dwane na ba de bia no bon se de o twituo no no ofili se ye uye hufuo usurotuo enti o twituo ba pe ubedwane ti de bia na ojimi tu ye anu akotwituo me akwala ye nkwala no ukaye se ubekaye a o kuntokwa bon se mpanyifo se munya omo na omo nko mo amko a na so omo bre na omo huni obebo ne yonko a ohu no ankasa na ni beba no so omo abeja ntokwa no ampa so ebe wi ache na afa obi ahu se amagana hia na yehu amagahu afedi ni ate enho ase ye nyina yemfa kwan back so NDC fo mo hwa chale mo ya say nyoma o.
I disagree with you. I respect your opinion, but I disagree with you.
Ayo.
You see, say Ankawosha, NDC, ye military, ye titi ye military, ye military. And think I dear a ban no more mumbo buga and kaye nimbote. But the point is that the world is evolving. The party has evolved. It has grown from that military mindset, to something that is acceptable by all. The other day I was telling somebody, so Usha MPP its approach, its leadership, and even membership of Krana. According to say first in 1990 NDC. Nanki epe buga for more But I remember in 2008, one of the things a man who said NDC be win the election was how NDC was accepted on the campus of KNUST. Because in the 90s, nobody wanted to hear NDC's name in Kumasi, let alone an intellectual field like KNUST. And the world has evolved. And this year can say, you person tit for tat. And what's someone working? The answer lies in the fact to say, and then what is the number of NDC MPs in Parliament? What was His Excellency's figure in the just ended election? Because people didn't like it. They saw taking a nice approach, yet allowing rule of law to work and then never war mind. Because remember, we've gone past the military era. We've all accepted democracy. We rather have to perfect the democracy. We don't have to kind of give the democracy we've accepted to practice, give it a scar. We don't have to do that. And so, for me, like I said, if Kufuor, His Excellency, former President Kufuor, if His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, the former president, did things that were wrong, we all lamented on it. The result is what we have seen. The result is the nature of parliament we have now. 100 and something figures against 88 members of parliament. So we shouldn't take that support Ghanaians gave us for granted. Yes, rule of law must work, the law must work, and that is why today, as we talk now, and you heard the Attorney General taking people to court. We are not saying that people who have committed crimes against the state will not be taken to court, and I say we'll deal with them in that NDC, MPP kind of style. So we are all the same and all that. No. But the point is that in this case, it is not like these people are operating illegally. Yes, they've made inroads in kind of legalizing their operations. Just that they fell behind at certain points. We rather have to embrace them, carry them along, let them formalize all their licenses so that they can operate. My good brother, young fan is saying, say you back and I walk to school, and you say I saw the end and I back. And now they just 5 books up. Not say teacher upon the say. And I saw the 10 books ever. Now the 5 never. You come men see school would you be happy? You wouldn't. And so for me, I feel say, what do we do? Let us carry them along, or rather caution them, say, next time this thing will not be tolerated again. That is how we build the democracy. Because even in the exercise of this democratic dispensation, we've made errors, but we've perfected them along the way. And see, I feel say it is not that buga thing that is going to make things work. Yɛnhwɛ Rollins era. Yɛnim sɛnea na yɛ Papa Rollins sɛnea na ɔyɛ. Was he able to change everybody in Ghana? No. Despite all the military antics in Ghana, not all Ghanaians change their mindset. You understand? And so, no matter the style you use, you cannot have 100% society. But then what we need to understand and say, those who are falling behind, we carry them along, help them to also perfect the ways so that our democracy can be perfect. But let us not rely on the fact to say, Obi on it and we also need to do the same thing to them. I agree with those from that school of thought to say the laws must work. Yes, the laws must work. I believe in that. Institutions need to be allowed to work. Because as you rightly said, at the way out, His Excellency, it can also have a certain kind of repercussion. Because look, the minister, if psychologically he doesn't have that, mindset, or taking another decision, or maybe someone will say, hey, that decision I being taken for president, would he like it? Is he going to revoke that decision again? Yes, of course, it can have ramifications. But let us not look at it, but rather look at the broader picture. And the broader picture is that we are one family, we are one society, we are one as Ghanaians. Let us try to carry ourselves along and perfect the wrongs of those who have erred against the state or who have in exercise of their duties or their rights or their freedoms, have come, short of what is the demand. Let us help them. I was not happy when Radio Gold was shut down. I was not happy when Afenyo was shut down. But wouldn't I be hypocrite if I say, yes, Asasi Radio has been shut down and I'm happy? I will be a hypocrite. And I will be contradicting myself. What you are saying. And so, if it was wrong yesterday, it doesn't become right today because NDC is in power. It has to be wrong. If it was wrong, it is still wrong. My issue is, let us use this as a medium to rather encourage others that, look, if someone does anything wrong to you, you need to have that heart of forgiveness. And that is what His Excellency has done. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing we all need to look at is that the president has set up an agenda. And the agenda is that I need to create jobs. I need 24-hour economy. I need to let the youth of Ghana get work to do. But this person who is advancing the cause of creating work comes in and destroys work, which will be in total contradiction of his 2024 manifesto. So let us allow them to also work while we encourage them to fulfill all other things that are demanded of them in the operation of those radio stations. For me, that is how I believe. I don't think we have to do it the buga way you do me, I do you. No, it is not going to get us anywhere.
Yo, say na mo kan dia ye be fa na sa na ya hwe anim ene die besi ye de ne papa mu na ye nka ye hwehwe no se ne nyankopon asam ka no e wa pam dada mu no se ukun obi ani yakun bi ubo obi asuma ye mbo osuosum tu obi nsia na osusu na nka ya tu nsia na osusu de asua lesson and penyifo okra na bu be say we of one son, no, I shall dear, I buy the boat taking ya the boba. Nanka dear no, I had de, na efe, na yen so soon be nano a kayen ma, and I say, kai binuma no musuno, and can neno, no musono, asre, na ibimusu soon. Na fefe, but oh, near all kind of so dear. I think say more no NDC for my mo say moya agema mo ba say mo ba ji o man enti ne be ko bia no o man no na di kan e na mo hwe Ghana first father for all
I mean when the biblical context a bit it is important so not contextualize this statement in the same way as you did. Yeah, the Moses era was an eye for an eye. Did it yield results? If it yielded results, the Messiah wouldn't have been sent. But because it didn't yield results, that's the sending of the Messiah. And when the Messiah came, what did he say? His preaching was in total disagreement with the an eye for an eye. And then on the year in a so also obibo wasuma faba kuno suma no manumbo. That is not to say so against the state. But the point is that these are not huge crimes against the state. These are just minor infractions. And this is what I'm saying. We rather have to use this opportunity to educate all the other radio stations and the TV stations operating without the required licenses. No. Young country almost say, look, the president has been lenient. It gives you the opportunity because an opportunity has been availed unto you. Say, if 5 years ago you didn't have the license or you didn't complete the processes of making your TV station a legal one, now the opportunity has been availed to you. Use this opportunity to legalize or to formalize your operations. That is not to say if they go contrary to the law again tomorrow, the president will come and issue another statement. And let us take it in good faith. Yes, all that everyone is saying, we respect the opinion. But like as a father, which you've alluded to say, so buy a bonia, yamping for one that can also buy a bonia now, buy 7. Oja the 909 so but you rather you claim it, and that is what the president has done. To me, as Joe sitting here, maybe in Kamepen Buga like you are saying, but that is why we have the fact. Intina, I can't tradition. I say Missy, I see ye Kobisa Abroa because we know that Abroa has all the knowledge. And Abroa wants peace. Abroa wants goodwill. And the young fan say Abroa is the president, and he has exercised this discretion. Because don't get me wrong, it is a discretion that the president has exercised. And since he has that right to exercise that discretion, we only have to take it in good faith and work on it to solidify whatever move a nesta or mine and your mind count.
Joe, you better say na yabisa say unsema itwato no na yemfa enkomo no ensi ha no.
Well, Baminda was once again. The American say we should not be seen as a political game or anything. I have heard Afenyo Markins, and I'll give free advice to the NPP. If they want to move forward, like you were talking about, say you wanted that guy an eye for an eye. If they want to move forward, they need to rethink their decision on Afenyo Markins still being their leader in parliament. Because a president has kind of giving this directive. It is up to you as a minority leader. All these FM stations in Ukraine are aligned to your political party. You need to show gratitude. But to classify it as you are taking it as a pinch of salt, it tells you where MPP is going. That is why they have 88 members, and soon they are going to be even 87, because you see, for whoever, the former minister for sports will be arrested. And even he, Afenyo Markins, probably could be arrested. And so their number will dwindle. And so if the MPP, I have always asked myself, is this the MPP of Damboche? The MPP of Kwame Pieni and this man, the former finance minister who died? The MPP of Kofor, Gentle Jack, rather. What's the Alan Chamante? Voices of dissent, voices of encouragement, voices that give hope. That was the MPP I knew years back. But this MPP of Mutumi, Afenyo Martin and Abronye, they need to check their ways. And so for me, I would rather want to commend the president in summing up. No? I want to commend the president, and I also want to urge Ghanaians, wherever you find yourself, look, you don't gain anything in NDC failing. The country rather loses. And so for those of us who are blinded by political lines and thinking, say, oh, NDC failing, now my party embrano. When NDC fails, Ghana goes down, further down. The wreckage becomes even worse. We need to support the government. We need to do all that we can as people of Ghana, as Ghanaians, to support the government of the day to progress us onto a better field. Because my brother, CCA MPP, I say on my ear, His Excellency Ababe take over. Look at the nation strike. You think if the nation was in any proper situation, and the nurses would go on strike? Exactly. And I think Impose, Sir Nanado Danko Akufuado, any MP before, if many year, and then they will not be talking about the radio stations who have defaulted in either renewing their licenses or making the right procedures to get their operations formalized. Because the governance was anyway, anyhow. And so everybody thought I can do anything I want. You see, I plead with all of us. Let us have Ghana's heart. May end this in it, but there's this thing I always say. My brother, if you take from 1992 till now, 2025, the NDC and the NPP have gained more than the nation itself. For how long are we going to continue to sit down whilst political party gains more than the state? And the national service scandal.
I'm saying, Minya, Joe, I feel line so. Minya Joe, I feel line so. I mean, try set me sign to me at the ato subi more. Na yemfa kasa no NC me pesa yeden beto so na afi yeden komo no beti kura. Yeah, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm saying, yeah. Oh, free line so.
Yeah, me da wasi.
Yeah.
Me pesa master me yet in eh adesre achopa na mesre ye nua Ghana for say mumma ye na yen kampu You forget about MPP, NDC, and like I said, MPP, NDC has gained more than the country Ghana. It is about time. Say a bit more minor, developing. You more minor, and yet the SSL unya. Now in that no, and now yenso you be benefiting. But if it is about NDC and MPP, it is only individual few who benefit. But when the nation is growing at that rate, ye na ye benya home faso. Na ye na will reap from that benefit na or mind no enya. Nti ope medawasi.
So
Amada Ghana fu na so ase.
yo.
Say omo
Yo, and Joe, you better was a pass. Unya breast so at the Maya near Between and Como. Medasi, Yamin
Mr. Medasi, Yamin Kamo.
Amen. Joe Abusha for your name, Yenuya Joe, Emmanuel Onkoma, and a quarter train and Como, a war, Amanoni UK. Or no, or a political analyst, and or sign a NDC Amanu Kuno, secretary, our Leeds branch. Na nkɔmmɔ no ehwam na abusua GJA for Ghana Journalist Association ɔmo so ɛde ɔmo anodisɛm abɛto hɔnom ɛfa asɛm no ɔse mepatwɔ mpɛ sɛ yɛkan na mohu deɛ meka no ɔse GJA applauds President Mahama for reversing closure of 64 radio stations. I say the Ghana Journalist Association (GJA) has commended President John Dramani Mahama for his decisive intervention to prevent the closure of 64 radio stations nationwide. A move that was set in motion by the National Communications Authority over various regulatory infractions. The affected stations were cited for offenses ranging from failure to renew their frequency authorizations, operating without valid documentation, exceeding approved transmission limits, to non-payment of authorization fees. However, President Mahama ordered the Minister of Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation to work with the NCA to suspend the shutdown, a directive that GJA believes averted a major crisis in Ghana's media landscape. In a statement issued on Friday, the GJA said the closure of so many radio stations, regardless of the regulatory breaches, would have had severe socio-economic consequences, including mass job losses and the disruption of essential public services delivered by these media outlets. We agree with the president that shutting down the radio stations may seriously undermine media freedom and freedom of expression, the association noted. The GJA praised President Mahama for what it described as a balance between regulatory enforcement and clemency, saying his actions reflect a government that is responsive to concerns about media freedom and committed to fostering media pluralism and diversity, while urging the affected stations to take advantage of the reprieve to rectify the regulatory lapses. The GJA also reaffirmed its stance against illegality, stressing the need for compliance within a framework that supports journalistic freedom. The association further called for greater dialogue between the NCA and media stakeholders to ensure that regulatory enforcement does not unduly stifle the flow of information. It also urged the NCA to ensure fairness and transparency in its compliance processes. To enhance public accountability, the GJA has asked the NCA to publish the compliance status of all radio and TV stations, including details about ownership and licensing timelines. The association statement, signed by General Secretary Kofi Yeboah, also called for a more balanced regulatory environment that safeguards both operational fidelity and the fundamental principles of press freedom. Enti GJA for so edie ena yakofa ede abramo no abusiafo aha ene yede yedwumadie no ebesi John Dramani Mahama ena anya abasobodie kese ede afi GJA for ene media akukudamfo bebre enchen ena sana communication fans political analyst for ene menkana asofo ni mpanyifo bebre abona baso se wa ya de se watumi ahwe ama saa adeye ankoso abusia aha PENDREAM TV message so subscribe to the channel, like video no na share to other platforms am the be call ama afoforo so anya bi atumi ahwe PENDREAM TV said the bia no ye kano no ya na ye se edamu yopo
PENDREAM TV Dedi kama mamena PENDREAM TV ase